The community I chose to interview for this project are friends that also received their BSW from NYU and are currently in the social work field. Mental health is discussed within my community. However, in being young social workers, I feel that we are more vulnerable to feeling stress caused by the field because we have less experience and we have less financial resources to cope with that stress. I find that friends who are also social workers are amazing support systems. With COVID-19, I think there's much to think about in regard to mental health, both personally and professionally. Each of our privileges and forms of identity have either protected us or made us more vulnerable during this pandemic. Not to mention, there is more societal awareness of racial trauma with the killing of George Floyd during the pandemic and many other people of color, and that has added to the impact of mental health during this time. The community response to mental health. I believe naturally that social work friends are good listeners, so we provide support how we can, but then encourage our friends to seek therapy, talk to supervisors, etc. I feel honored in becoming a mental health provider because it feels like a valuable way to give back to the community, especially in times of crisis and suffering, especially during times like the pandemic. The first friend I chose to interview is 23 years old. She goes by she, her. She is gay, a person of color, and an MSW student. When I spoke with her about mental health, she said she feels comfortable talking about it because social workers in her life have helped her reduce the stigma around mental illness. She believes that the critical mental health issues in our community are depression and vicarious trauma, and that the response is that agencies are not doing an adequate job, but that other social workers encourage each other to seek professional help. How we should respond to mental health issues, she said that we should be getting paid more to have a better quality of life. And how we would improve mental health in our community is that we should lean on each other, but recognize that we should seek our own therapy and support from our school and supervisor. The second friend I chose to interview is 23 years old. They use they, them pronouns. They're queer, a person of color, an LMSW, and a therapist for LGBTQ plus youth. So when I asked them how it feels to speak with me about mental health in our community, they said that it's very important. However, it's complicated because we all have our own relationship with mental health. When I asked them critical mental health issues facing our community, they said that we currently are not centering the voices of social workers with a history of marginalization. For example, social workers of color, trans, and queer social workers who have more experiences in the agencies and systems that they serve and are more vulnerable to burnout and vicarious trauma. However, they have less access to resources in order to cope with those mental health challenges. When I asked them about the current response to mental health issues, they said that often we center the voices of white, middle, and upper class social workers, and we use band aid solutions like employee assistance and self care programming. When I asked them how we should respond to mental health issues, they said that we should pay social workers more, especially those most marginalized and traumatized by the very systems they are now working for. And how we can improve mental health in our community, they said adding more resources like health insurance for social workers instead of merely talking about self care. The third friend I chose to interview is 26 years old. She goes by she, her. She is bisexual, a person of color, an LMSW, and a mental health provider. When I spoke with her about mental health, she said that therapists are under a great amount of stress with usually large caseloads. Workplaces need to take burnout more seriously, she said. Critical mental health issues facing our community are burnout and vicarious trauma due to the amount of work, especially taken on by young social workers. The response to mental health is that we talk to our friends, but that we shouldn't have to in the first place. The way that we should be responding to mental health issues, she believes, is that workplaces should not demand so much from mental health providers, and improving mental health in our community, she believes, would be through fair workloads and treatment of employees in the workplace.